Welcome to An Honorable Profession, a podcast giving America hope since 2018. I'm Ryan Coonerty. Along with Debbie Cox Bultan of the New Deal, I'm lucky enough to be your co-host. An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. The New Deal is an organization that supports the next generation of American leaders. From attorneys generals to state senators to mayors to school board members, these are the people that are pushing policies and politics that will respond to climate change, rebuild our economy, address racial injustice, and restore our democracy. These are incredibly talented people who have dedicated themselves to public service when their country and their communities needed it the most. Check out newdealleaders.org to see what I'm talking about.
My guest today is Congressman Greg Landsman. He represents Ohio's 1st Congressional District, is a member of the New Democrat Coalition, and the co-host of a new podcast, The Fly-In. The Congressman and I talk about the budget bill that just passed the House and what comes next, including the devastating and wildly unpopular cuts to health care, and what Democrats can do to help their constituents understand the legislation. We also talk about the importance of transparency and how to restore trust in government, how Democrats should be tough, not mean, and the need for an authentic, reform-minded Democratic agenda that delivers for the American people. I hope you enjoy. Congressman Greg Landsman, welcome to An Honorable Profession.
Well, thanks for having me.
So excited to have you. So much to talk about in Washington, outside Washington. I thought I would start with probably what's on a lot of people's mind right now when they think about Washington, which is the big, beautiful bill. Any thoughts on kind of where we are now, what you're hearing from the Senate, where you think things are going to go next?
Sure. So it's a disaster of a bill. It's a terrible bill. It is about $4.5 trillion in spending. Most of it goes to tax cuts that overwhelmingly favor the super wealthy and big corporate investors. To pay for that, congressional Republicans are adding trillions of dollars to the deficit and cutting over $1 trillion in healthcare, and then about $200 to $300 billion in food assistance. And so it's one of, if not the largest transfers of wealth from working people in the middle class to the super wealthy. So it's deeply, deeply unpopular. And it passed the House by one vote, literally one vote. And now it's being debated in the Senate. The more time that the American people get to review this bill, the less popular it becomes. And so the Senate is likely to scale back some of the healthcare cuts. They may scale back some of the cuts to the clean energy tax credits that congressional Republicans in the House got rid of. And then there's a bunch of sort of policy-related issues that will likely get pulled from this bill. In order to do a reconciliation bill, you can avoid the filibuster 60-vote threshold, meaning that you only need a simple majority, 51 votes, or 50 plus the vice president, to break the tie. If there's no policy in it. And this bill is riddled with policy. So, for example, there's language in here that would allow the Trump administration to ignore court orders. That is a 5-alarm fire kind of situation for our democracy, and all of the harm that he's doing that's only being blunted or dealt with in large part because the courts are intervening. That language would have to be removed by the Senate parliamentarian because it has nothing to do with spending. It is a policy, a piece of policy that should be removed. That's called the Byrd Rule. The Byrd Rule, named after Senator Byrd, requires that it have zero policy in it. It's only spending. And so there's a bunch of those things. Another example is the moratorium around AI. States in this bill are not allowed to regulate AI at all for 10 years. I mean, it literally is one of the worst pieces of legislation in American history.
I mean, I know Democrats fought hard, to your point. It was passed by one vote, in particular on the Medicaid cuts, among other things. I've been talking to New Deal leaders a lot all over the country. What they're hearing about from their constituents, this is such a big bill, as you mentioned, so much in it, people don't know what's in it. What advice do you have? I hear from our folks that Medicaid is obviously breaking through. We're seeing that in some of the town halls. What advice do you have for people who have to talk about the bill to constituents, and what should they be highlighting that people need to know about?
Yeah, the most important thing is that this is taking away healthcare from 13, 14 million people, food assistance from millions more, just to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy and big corporate investors. And so that really is the big takeaway, that they're doing tax cuts. The vast majority of the benefits of these tax cuts go to the wealthiest people at the expense of working folks who are going to lose their health care and food assistance. That is why this bill is so deeply unpopular. The fact that they're adding trillions to the deficit is also unpopular, but taking from the poor to pay for stuff for the rich is not something that goes over well with the American people. It's deeply unpopular. And as Republican Senator Josh Hawley said, this is political suicide. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible bill.
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching that for sure. I want to get to a couple other things I know you're working on in Congress. One is, back in the days that you were a city council member in Cincinnati, government transparency, government effectiveness, government accountability has been really important to you. I'd love to kind of know, why that's been so important to you all along. And then something that you've done in Congress is to get out in front of this idea that members of Congress should not be trading stocks, and that there needs to be transparency around all of that. So tell us a little bit about kind of why this has been such an issue for you for your whole career and what you're doing about it now.
Well, one, trust is everything in life, but certainly in politics and government. So and trust is at an all-time low, both parties. So whoever can restore trust and get people engaged again is going to make progress. And I want my team, the folks that share my values, to make progress, because ultimately that's where we start to help the people who need it the most, and fix the economy. That the biggest thing that we have to do is fix what's broken about this economy. That's the tax code. So in this bill, they're doing the exact opposite of what we need to do, which is provide tax relief for everybody that needs it, and have that be paid for by the folks at the top, who would just have to pay a little bit more. And you slowly fix the tax code so that everyone at the top is paying all their taxes. You give tax relief to everybody else, and you invest more in them. And that's how you build the biggest, most durable middle class in human history. But the stock stuff does help people start to believe in their elected officials again. So I don't take corporate PAC money because I want people to, appreciate that I'm always with them, and never with these big money folks. But also, I didn't just take the lead on the bill to ban members of Congress from trading stocks. We literally sold all of our stocks and moved everything into mutual funds so that we were in compliance with a bill that hopefully will pass. Every single member of Congress should do that now. Yeah. And now that I've done it, I can say it with some credibility. Just go do it. And don't trade stocks. Just move everything into mutual funds. It's not like you're going to lose, out on big money unless you were doing something truly inappropriate and illegal, in which case you shouldn't be in Congress at all. Probably should be in jail. But the stocks piece is part of a larger effort, in my mind, to restore trust and make government more believable, more credible, more effective. That is, get money out of politics, ban dark money, get members of Congress out of the business of trading stocks, get members of Congress to not take corporate PAC money, and partisan gerrymandering and voter suppression. But then there's also the piece of government reform where you got to make it work better. Like, this is where permitting reform comes in. We got to be able to let people who are, communities that are building bridges or trying to repave roads or whatever infrastructure work they're doing, or communities that are trying to build more housing, it should be faster. It should all be faster. And we have to be the party that goes in there and cuts the red tape so that government is just making things happen. Because at the moment, people want government to fix stuff. They see a sea of broken things in their lives, and they want government to come in and fix it. And Democrats have to be the party that says, no, we will fix it because A, we care and these are our values, but we're also going to learn from the mistakes of the past where we pass something and then the money just sits there. Where you're going to pass something and then the money is going to get to work immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot in that answer. And I will say both on the corruption side, I think it is super important right now what you're doing. And thank you for doing it because, it is juxtaposed with what's happening in this administration with the, most recent example is the jet, right? That's being, given, that there is really I worry that there's a sense that, everybody's the same, right? This is just how politics works. And so to be out in front and saying, no, it's not how it works. And it's not how it should work is super important. And so do you have any kind of, is this unfortunately somewhat of a partisan issue at the moment? Or are there ways that you're finding to work on common ground on some of the more transparency and restoring trust in government issues? Are you getting any help on that from the other side?
Behind the scenes or as you talk to people in the hallway or on the floor, the challenge is getting it into a committee, on the committee, markup calendar where we vote on it and onto the House floor. All of that is really driven by leadership. And, the congressional leadership they're all swimming in corporate PAC money. And so it becomes very difficult. So, if Democrats or my colleagues, any of them, want to be part of this fix, they should stop taking corporate PAC money. They should, if they're trading stocks, absolutely sell all of it and move everything into mutual funds, and talk about banning dark money and partisan gerrymandering and ending voter suppression wherever they go. Like that, it should be about cleaning up government, and the whatever follows this moment has to be an anti-establishment reform agenda that is all about cleaning things up and getting this corruption out of the system. And it's not just the president taking this jet, which is insane. It's just it is so beyond appropriate. And anything we've ever seen, or the Trump coin, where it's just a Venmo or a bank account where people are just giving him, presumably, based on the reporting, millions, if not, tens of millions of dollars for, in exchange for, pardons or whatever it is, again, based on reporting, or the fact that he's got his kids, Trump, flying around the world and getting people to invest in properties, again, in exchange for, God only knows what, but certainly using the power of the office. It's all illegal. The big corporate or corruption issue that people have to come to terms with that affects people's lives and people hate more than anything is the big money stuff, is the big pharma, big oil, the gun manufacturers, all these folks who just dump so much money into these politicians and get these politicians to vote with them at the expense of the people they represent. That's the corruption that the American people hate.
Let me turn to another thing that you were doing in Congress, because it speaks to the point that you are able to find some bipartisan compromise there, right? You had, I think, the first piece of legislation that passed on a bipartisan manner in the House is work on the investment in semiconductor industry around the country. So are things tell me about that. And then, is there more happening that's actually under the radar, under the yelling politics? It's actually continuing to happen on the bipartisan basis, or was that kind of an unusual thing?
It was an unusual thing. I mean, investing in semiconductors was, clearly something that both sides could agree on, and we got it to the floor. But again, there's something wrong on Capitol Hill. In addition to the amount of money that's just obscene, there's also just this break between the Senate and the House. There's just not the kind of across the building work that used to happen. That's a huge problem. I mean, if something passes the House, it also has to pass the Senate. Yep. So, whatever the reforms are moving forward and the kind of leadership we get, they have to focus on the House and the Senate getting back to passing things together. And then this, these bills have to be meaningful. We did some meaningful stuff last Congress. I pushed for the discharge petition on the Social Security Fairness Act, which is a $20 billion a year investment in public retirees. It's giving them their Social Security. If teachers, firefighters, police officers, letter carriers, the money that they paid into Social Security, they weren't getting it back. And that bill had been sitting there for 25 years, which speaks to, just how broken things have become. And we had to force a discharge petition, meaning we voted around the speaker. And, anyways, we got it done. We got to the Senate, and it was one of the last things that Biden voted on, signed into law. Yeah. But there will be hopefully some bipartisan work. I'm always pushing for that. I'm part of a bipartisan group called the Problem Solvers, which is, 20, 30 Democrats, 20, 30 Republicans. And it is us, sort of ready to go if we get the call on this budget, on border security, on immigration reform, on permitting reform. Like, we're ready to go, but the assignment has to be there. Leadership has to say, we want to do this in a bipartisan way. And if they continue down this path of constantly trying to do everything, in the most hyper-partisan of ways, they're going to get, one, very little done, and two, whatever they get done is going to be very problematic for the American people. It just is. So my hope is that, the Senate kicks this bill back and they can't pass it, and the bill dies, because if it dies, hopefully the speaker will say, well, let's make this bipartisan and start not from the beginning, but have a tax code or a tax plan where all the relief goes to the people who need it, paid for by folks who already are doing great and have already seen a tax cut. And and it's just a matter of saying, look, we're going to let that expire.
Yeah.
And then, the bipartisan border fix, and probably you put, a few of us in a room, and give us a couple of days, we will find the bipartisan path forward on waste, fraud, and abuse. We just will.
Yeah.
And that is a bill that will get 350, 400 votes, and it'll help Americans. So that, but this one has to fail first. And so we got to kill this bill. And, one of the reasons why Joni Ernst is struggling so much is because, as I have been saying, and she walked right into this, you kill the bill because the bill is going to kill Americans. And when somebody, came at her and said, this is going to kill Americans, which it is, when you take healthcare away from 13, 14 million people will die. For her to say, well, we're all going to die, and then have this mocking video is just where the Republican national, crew is. Yeah. And this is not my everyday Republicans in my district or Republicans throughout the country. It's not rank and file Republicans. It's congressional Republicans we're going to take 10 million. We're going to take healthcare away from 10 million people. We get that they're going to die, but we're all going to die, and we're going to mock them.
Yeah,
that's where
it's terrible.
Is
it's terrible. And I mean, so to your point, you win a swing district. You are thinking about the future of the Democratic Party. We lost the last election, and we have a lot of work to do. You've touched on a lot of it already. Like, which party is going to actually make, be able to make government deliver for people and deliver results for people? Which party is going to be able to restore trust in government? Which party is going to be, are people going to think is on their side? So when you think about kind of where we go from here heading into 26 and then 28, what's top of mind for you about what needs to happen within our party to be able to win back some control and to change things?
I heard one of the potential 2028 candidates say that we need to be more like Trump and be mean. We do not. We need to be tough. We need to be tough. The American people want things fixed, and they want people who are tough enough to go in there and fix things. So we got to be tough, not mean. In fact, you fix things with a degree of determination and toughness, but also with some decency and kindness. So let's not go down that path. But toughness and the ability to say, no, we are going to go all in on getting things fixed. And we are going to be the most reliable, strongest partner you've ever had. I mean, that's the direction we need to go in. We need, in the meantime, as we're putting this together, a national, organizing effort. I proposed that and working on that outside of the DSCC and the DCCC and the DNC to say like, this has got its, its own leadership, and they're focused on this response every day. This is all they do. And they're doing voter reg and, mobilization work, and they're helping with messaging and those kinds of things. And it's just, and something we should have done a long time ago. And it's just now is the time. Like, we need a national, messaging, visioning, and organizing effort. Second, we got to rebuild trust. And some of that is the reforms I talked about. Some of it is just coming clean with the American people. Like, Democrats told everyone the economy was fine and good when it's been broken for decades. It's been broken for decades. Some Democrats were like, "Oh, border security is no big deal." It's a big deal. Public safety is a big deal. We haven't had a compelling vision for public education in 25 years. And I would argue that 25 years ago, it wasn't a very compelling vision. Like, we need to lay out a vision for how we're going to make sure every kid shows up to kindergarten ready, because they got all the early learning investments that they need, and that we're going to catch kids up from all the losses from COVID because we're helping them after school and during the summer. We got to come clean on Biden. I was one of the maybe 15, 20 members of Congress who said he should step aside. That's too low of a number. So, that's all part of rebuilding trust and saying to folks, we know where you are on these issues, and we are moving towards where you are, because that's key to making things happen and winning elections and getting things done. The third is laying out a really compelling vision of reform and how we're going to fix it. And I have proposed doing what Republicans did in 1994 when they were in a similar situation, and then they won historic victories in 1994 with the Contract for America, which was, their first 10 bills. And I've laid those 10 bills out. We'll publish it, in the next week or two. I'm not saying that my 10 bills are the 10 bills, but, the top three address, the economy and passing a massive bill that, fundamentally transforms the economy so that we are rewarding hard work, not wealth. The second is around, building again, build, baby, build, like a bill that gets at permitting reform and all of the other investments and changes that will help communities build tons of housing and all kinds of other things that they need. And then the third is a 21st century, anti-crime public safety bill where we, allow communities to hire more police officers, and we get common sense gun reform so that we are working with law enforcement to dramatically reduce gun violence and make every city safe.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing those 10. And we're out there looking for ideas that are working outside of Washington too, that we can bring to you all to get a look at. I want to go back to one thing before I move on about just kind of where we are. And I want to ask you to square this, right? So the you were talking about, we just need to be, people saying we just need to be mean, or we need to do what Trump does, or, we were talking earlier in this podcast about, you doing bipartisan work, but also being tough, right? Moderate Democrats get a lot of flack for like not being, that this isn't the moment to work across the aisle. This isn't the moment to, we've just got to, be louder than they are. So just how do you, that I disagree with that, but how do you square that circle? How do you talk about that? How do you talk about being able to be tough and call Trump out when you need to, but also at the same time working to get stuff done when you can, right? Because don't we have to do both things?
Always. Yeah. But I think that people are attracted to and want to work with leaders who are tough, who speak their mind and who get things done. And so, don't be mean, be tough. Let's resolve that. You call them out and then you get ready to work and you get ready to work with as big of a coalition as you can, because you want to get it done. And you want to make sure that when it passes, that it's going to stay passed, that it's durable, that it's not going to get upended in the next election because you decided that you were just going to go it on your own. Now, if no one on the other side wants to work with you, you still got to go. Yeah. But you have to do everything in your power to try to get something done with the broadest coalition, because you want it to stick. You want it to be good policy that helps people and that it stick, and then it sticks.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to, you're part of the New Democrat Coalition, some of our best friends and partners in the House. We do a lot of work together. So thank you for that.
Can I say one thing on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I want to not push back. I want to just talk a little bit about this word moderate,
Sure.
because some people describe me as a moderate. Some people describe me as a pragmatic centrist, or, and some people, describe me as a progressive. One thing on the word moderate, I think it's a little misleading in the sense that for most of us, we are all over the place in terms of, the political spectrum. Sometimes you'll look at our positions, you'll say, oh, that is left to center. Or you'll look at our positions, you'll say, well, that's not left to center. That's more, progressive. Where I think we are, the so-called moderates, is where the vast majority of voters are. And that's what I would say moving forward is like, I am many things, but most importantly, because I represent a very purple district with an equal number of Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, and have a good sense of where voters are, I believe I'm where the vast majority of voters are. So it's not a political ideology, or it is, but it's really best described as being where most voters are.
Yeah.
That's where my crew is.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think that's a good way to say it. And I think it's wrapped up in what we were talking about earlier. It's about people who just want to get stuff done and and be pragmatic about that.
And this is another piece where like Democrats have to sort of move on from something that hasn't worked for them in the past. And that is being self-righteous. Just because you're so smart and you know these issues and you've read all this policy research and whatever, you don't do this alone. Everyone's smart. Go talk to people, go work the problem, and you'll find out that voters are somewhere not exactly where you are.
Right.
And you got to work that in order to get something done. Otherwise, you care more about being right than getting things done. I care more about getting something done than I am about being right.
That's right. I totally agree with that. And I also want to double click on another word. I don't even know if you said this word, but you've said it in spirit a couple of times, which is authenticity. I mean, I think that's the other place we are right now, which is like people are looking for authentic leaders who are going to speak their mind, even whether or not they agree with everything they say, I think, right? I mean, that Democrats, were so worried about saying the wrong thing or offending, this group or whatever like that. We just got to get over that. And we just have to be ourselves, even within our own coalition, whatever that is.
This is a Kim Kardashian moment for the Democratic Party in the sense that Kim Kardashian once said about reality TV, in some ways it's harder than real acting because you have to be yourself, and it's either going to work or it's not going to work. And that's what Democrats have to come to terms with. Just be yourself. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. And if it's not going to work, that's okay. Go do something else. But if you are your authentic self, one, you're going to have more fun. You're going to be easier to be around, and it's going to work or it's not. But if it does, you're going to be great. Yeah. And the only way to find that out is to be your authentic self and see how it goes.
Yeah. Let's I know you need to go, but I want to wrap up with at least a plug for your podcast, which we're all excited about, The Fly-In. Tell me why that is happening and what you're talking about and how people can listen to it.
So as you mentioned, I'm part of the New Dem coalition. There's about 115 of us in the Democratic caucus. It's an attempt to get our folks, our members, more exposure. And so every week, Mark Veazey and I, he's a member from Texas. He and I have another member on to talk about the week ahead. And again, it's just an opportunity for our members to get more exposure and have more visibility, and our message, which is more pragmatic and I think more thoughtful, to be part of the national debate.
I love that. And it's called The Fly-In, so people can find it wherever they find their podcasts. I lied. I'm going to ask you one more question. Tell me why this is an honorable profession. We like to talk about people's journeys into politics. I know you were a school teacher. Service has been a big thing for you your whole life. What got you into politics? Why did you run for office? How you felt about that decision?
Yeah, I like solving problems. I mean, I've always enjoyed that as a kid. That was sort of my thing. Just like playing with stuff and fixing it. I like fixing stuff. And I particularly enjoy the challenge of taking on a really complicated community, societal thing that needs to be fixed and pulling a bunch of people together and fixing it. That's what I like.
Yeah. We're going to get back to doing that sometime soon.
We have to.
We have to.
And the American people are like, in this last poll that I saw, I don't know if it was a CNN poll or what it was, but it was clear the American people want government back in the business of fixing things.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep trying our hardest to do that. Thank you for coming on. Everyone listen to a fly-in. Really great to see you. Appreciate your time.
Too. All right. Thanks.
An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. Thanks to the team at NewDEAL for producing this episode. We encourage you to bring honor to public service, and because we keep things honorable, no tax dollars are used in the making of this podcast.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.